Everyone, we have someone here on the set. Thrilled again. It's a female. I'll let that much out. It's a person I consider a community organizer. She'll be able to break it down to where her interest really lies. And I'll do something different. I want to do something different here and to surprise her a bit. So here we go.
2017. Ladies and gentlemen, the reigning Pan Alive champions, live here tonight. Put your hands together and let's welcome the final band for the night, Pan Fantasy Steel Orchestra.
So I guess the public know is a Pan Fantasy lady. And I'll have to ask you now, your background, where you came from, and how you managed to come here.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here tonight, first of all. And I thank God for bringing us through this year and bringing us to this point. So yes, my name is Wendy Jones, the band leader of Pan Fantasy Steel Band, the executive director, CEO, whatever you want to call me. That's who I am. And life has been good. I still give God thanks and praise for all he's done for me. As you said, you know, who am I? Is a big, long question. And when I ask myself that question, sometimes I myself have to pinch myself, as we say back home, because I guess I've thrown myself in the hat, but taken things out of that hat and grown. Wendy Jones, who is Wendy Jones, as you said? Wendy is a panist. Being a panist, you know what that means, right? We've been playing pan long enough.
All right, so here we go. Identifying yourself as a panist now, and what age did you come here to Canada?
I came to Canada when I was 10 years old and going on 11. Okay,
so seeing that you come at 10, I guess you were doing your schooling. Common entrance was, I guess, part of your prerequisite for coming. Did you have your exam then, or how did that work?
I actually wrote the exam, passed, and ended up in Toronto a couple of months later. So,
okay. What school did you attend? Did you pass from?
I think it was the school wasn't built yet. I believe the school was Mount Hope I would have been going to, but they were still in building the school as far as I remember. And I didn't really go. I ended up going back to my old school for the time that I was there.
Which was
Sawa Presbyterian. I'm from Sawa. I'm a Sawa girl.
All right. Okay. Neighbors.
Yes.
Okay. As I'm over here, neighbor. So okay. Now, and the reason why I interject that because you start going as a pan lady, pan woman, however you have different terminology over the calypso season for females in the pan. Well, at that age when you're doing your common entrance, was pan ever part of your forte? How you look at pan then?
Pan was not in my forte, not even seen. All I can remember about pan was my brothers. I come from a family of 7, well, 6 of us, 7. And my brothers, both of them played pan, and they played for San Juan All Stars. Keith and late Keith Jones, my brother before me, and my older brother, Noel, also. They played with San Juan All Stars, and then they played with Solo Harmonites. And I remember the names. I remember passing through the Quasi, and everybody saying that's where San Juan All Stars would practice. And but to say that we were in a pan yard, never. I don't recall. I never went to a pan yard growing up in Trinidad. My experience with Carnival in Trinidad was my mom taking us downtown and, you know, packing those wonderful bags with food. And then you get in town and then there was somebody would do something silly and people would start running And back in the day, you know what that meant, right?
Yeah, well, back in the day, we talking Sour All-Stars now in town. Yes, I know what that meant. You know Sour All-Star had a little repetition, you know. So never inquisitive in the pan. Your brothers beat you. Did you know these songs? At least they will beat it. Were you into the calypsos at that time?
Calypso, I remember listening to on the radio, and I remember laughing. I was telling my sister the other day how when Sparrow sang "Drunk and Disorderly," we would sing it in the house, and my mom would stop us from singing it because we grew up in a Christian home, and although my mom, taught us certain things and values, she did not see her girl children playing pan. That was not going to happen, even when I came to Toronto. But growing up and just understanding the culture of Carnival and Steel Pan, my brothers were the ones that were more involved. And she didn't even want them playing pan because it was a Bajan thing. And, she was, her brother, which I found out later on, my uncle, he was part of Red Army Steel Band. And that big clash that they had, that created a stigma. And my mom really wanted to stay away from that. So even though she wanted to integrate us into the carnival scene, she would just take us in town. And from the time anything happened, my mom packed up and we were gone. And that was the extent of our carnival. We did not go to Kitty's Carnival. We didn't do any of that stuff. I have no experience doing anything carnival-y in Trinidad growing up.
Although don't feel bad because we did things carnivally, but we did have to pack up too, just like you, and relocate based on altercations. So when you came, did you come with your mom to Canada?
No, my mom migrated.
Well, I wouldn't say so. So that's how you start slipping away then.
No, we didn't. We didn't. My mom came to Canada first. And when she came, she then brought, it would be 2 years later, 4 of us came. My youngest siblings, 3 of us, and 1 older brother, Pete. And then later on, she brought my other brother, and there was 5 of us here of the 7. 1 brother migrated to the States, and 1 sister stayed in Trinidad with her family.
So obviously at that tender age, you're back into school. You're back into academics, right? So where within getting to school and trying to make yourself now, growing up, this pan thing kick in? And how you get past your mom on that one?
Oh, that's a good story. It's a good story. What I could say is this. When we came to Canada, of course, you're introduced to the school system. And I liked music. I was really happy to be here, but not happy to be here. When you're migrating from a warm country to a cold country, and we came in the month of November. And one of the things I remember saying to my mom and my sister and I was like, Mom, why are the trees looking like this? Why do they not have leaves? There's no leaves on the trees. And she said, oh no, this is what we call the fall. And in the spring, they will come back. And we were like, okay. So it was a rude awakening, the whole culture of Canada. Getting into the school system was very interesting because we also had that opportunity to now make friends. And it was a little bit different than making friends in Trinidad. You don't speak the language everybody speaks, and they look at you different because we sounded different, right? We were speaking faster. And people were like, what did she say? What did we say? And the teacher would be like, okay, just slow down, things like that.
That's the rule, slow down.
Yeah, slow down. And I was quiet at that point. So it was more for them to make us talk and try to understand what we're talking about. Mind you, with the education system piece, we were a lot smarter and we were ahead of the kids who were here.
We call it brighter.
Yeah, we were brighter. Yes, I agree with that one. And but we were also streamed, which is something that I'm so happy they finally got rid of this year in the system, where children who come from other countries are being put back a year. And this was happening, especially with the Black community. We knew that this was a major stepping stone this year to see that gone, just taken away. because it really held back a lot of our young people when we look back and we say, hey, you know, we have our age and our mindset. Our age does not fit the grade.
Yeah.
Because we were behind by a year, and there was everybody that was older than us, but we were really up to their grade standard. But anyway, the music program.
Yes, so how now in the school system, you branched off to the music or the pan? Did you do the music in general as a curriculum, or did you go pan?
Well, really, I did the music first. When I got to grade 9, they were offering, I should say grade 8, they were offering the school music program, of course. And I was enthused by the violin. I liked the violin. And I thought it was so nice and I really wanted to play it. But when I got to the class and you had to pick an instrument, there was no more violins. And I thought, okay, well, what about a flute? So my sister took the flute. And when I got to the flute in my class, they were all gone. All that was left was a cello. You know what the cello is, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So you sit down and you have this big cello in front of you and you're playing it. So I took the cello home a couple of times and I was playing and I was like, this thing is just so, what a humbug. My mom would just look at me. She'd go, practice makes perfect. You know, just keep at it. You'll be fine. Don't worry about it. And I would be like, okay, but you would bring it home and you had to take it back to the school. So on the weekends, here we were with this big instrument, taking it home, bringing it back. And my sister said, I don't think you like that instrument very much. And I said, no. But anyway, I still, you know, kept with it. Grade 9 now, grade 10, while I was at Westview Centennial Secondary School, I remember going outside to the portable, and we had just recently moved to Jane and Finch. And by moving to Jane and Finch, it's a community where a lot of West Indians were. And the school that I attended was Westview Centennial Secondary School.
Could I ask what year that was?
It would be around 72, 74, 72, yeah, around there. And at that time, a lot, like I said, with the West Indian community at the school was a good level of community people. And in that community was a makeup of Trinidadians, Jamaicans, Italians. You know, we were good. We had a good group of young people at the school. So I used to see them just disappear at lunchtime and come back, and I would be in the cafeteria and I was like, where are they going? So that first year I was like, wait a second. And they said, there's a steel band program. And I saw the band perform and I was like, what? We have a steel band program? So I want to play pan too. So I went to the portable, which is outside of the school.
Hold on, you want to play pan too? It's a big, nice idea, but did that transform? I know we didn't have too much telephones then, but did your mom get away for that?
No.
All right, go ahead.
Not at that time. And I would just visit the portable at lunchtime because that was the hangout. You would go to the portable at lunch hour, and the members that were already in the band, because they came in a year before me. So Earl La Pierre Sr. had introduced a program to Westview Centennial Secondary School under the music teacher that had them come in. So Earl was teaching there at the time, and the course got offered as a credited program, along with the other music classes that were credited. So that was amazing.
Yeah.
That means it was not just an extracurricular thing that we were doing. This was a credited class. And I think he had one of the first classes that was being credited. So it was good to see that. And I was like, I gotta play pan. I wanna play. And as I walked into the portable, the one thing that caught my eye was the bass. And I stood there watching this young lady play the bass. And I thought, I wanna play the bass. I wanna play the bass. And they looked at me and they said, well, come and play. And I said, I was a little afraid, of course.
Yeah.
But I would visit the portable often. So a year went by. So the following semester, I joined. So I took the class with Earl, and eventually, you know, you learn to play. And one of the first things, you know, you have to learn the scales and learn all of that. And he had us all learning scales. And in the afternoons, we would come back to the portable. This is when the school band would be, the school steel band would be practicing.
Well, that's where my came back. I was itching this question. When you liken the bass, did you hear the band perform and choose what scale, what era you liked, or is it the bass as even in music, bass guitar and everything else? What is it? Or is it the movements of the bass fan, the steel pan bass? Or what is it about the bass? Is it the sound or the movement or what?
I think it was both at the time. Yeah, it was just the movement of the bass, the sound of it, and being able to play and just move your whole body. Like it was not just, you know, you're in the pan like this. It was just so nice to see the movement. And it was a girl that was playing, right? Her name was Debbie at the time. And I thought, she could handle this thing. This is good. This is good. So that means I can do this. And then she would say to me, come, I will teach you. So one of the first songs I learned was By the Rivers of Babylon. And I could not get that beat. I could not.
I suspect you were Canadian by the, okay.
I couldn't get the first, you know, Earl is teaching you, but then Debbie would teach me and she would say, you just have to listen to the sound because now we're doing everything by ear. We're not writing it down. And that's how I was playing. Bum, 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 right? And I just couldn't get it. And then once, you know, I would go all the time. And then one afternoon, I just picked it up. It was like, boom, it was ready. I was ready to go.
That's how it happens, yeah.
And that's how it started, yes.
So, all right, so you're into it now. So obviously Earl must have drafted you in to his band.
Yes. Well,
how did that though? Was that a negotiation or were you confident then, or you go back with your kind of shy-ish because you're going in a band, steel band, real steel band now, out in the public community?
Yeah, that was a rude awakening for us. And I say myself, and there were several other members of the steel band at the time that came in when I came in, and then there was a group before me. So we meshed a lot of the players. So at the school, we had our own band, which was called Westview Pan Groove, and we started playing all over the place. All the schools would ask us to come, and we were going and performing. And during what happened now, the summer came. And of course, Mr. Senior says, you know, well, we got to bring you guys down to Afropan.
I would do the same, call it recruitment.
Oh, that's how we ended up down in Afropan. So then I had to tell my mother, of course, I was playing pan. She didn't like it. But when I explained to her that it was a credited program and I got the credit for music, she was okay with that. But she never heard me play in the school at the time. And then I, you know, left the school band eventually and went over to Afropan. And she never heard me play down in Afropan also. It was the same thing for years. And it was so funny because during the summertime, we spent our whole summer down in Afropan at 44 St. George.
Okay. So now you with Afropan, I guess you won a few things with Afropan because that was the band, the people's band at the time. So we coming up to this thing now where you have to distinguish yourself and what happened here, because okay, so you're in Afropan, that's the band. I mean, there are other bands, yes, but Afropan was the band, especially if you call him 44 St. George. What happened that you evolve into this #1 administrator, #1 band? You're giving Afropan all this trouble now. What happened? Let me hear the sequence now with what made you leave, or what you enjoy first with Afropan and how it came to an end.
Afropan grew us up as pan players because now we were playing with the big, look at it this way. We were the kids all the way. And now all of a sudden, the kids are now playing in the big band. That was a big thing, right? But now we're playing among pan players from Trinidad, which we weren't doing that before. We were among our peers, but now we've moved from one situation into another, which is the community band, Afropan.
You call that graduation?
Well, you could call it that. There was a quick graduation. And we stayed there for several years. That was part of the growing of blockos, the growing of the band, practicing late at nights, coming on the road for Caravana, the rude awakening of taking the pans from 44 St. George down to varsity, down on the lake, not the lake shore, but university at the time. Then we went on Queen Street, then we were on Young Street, then we were here, we were there, and then you'd get down at the end on Union, and you're underneath the tunnel, and everybody jamming down there. You're not moving.
So you stayed on base from day one all the way?
Yes, I stayed on base right.
So I might as well give you the term, so we can call you the woman on the base?
The term that they use, yes. Yes, I stayed on base, taught a few people, quite a few people. I would stay in the band, you know, in the summertime, a lot of us were there to teach whoever came in. And, you know, Earl's one thing is he loads up the bass section. We have about 40 basses or 30 bass players.
That's good though, because the one thing about the pan music, it's kind of light compared to the contemporary type of music. It's kind of light, so that's good to have the bass.
Yeah, so I think that's the sound we used to look for. And when you're under the bridge or under the tunnel, at the end of the parade, and you hear those basses rumbling underneath there, oh gosh, you're not moving.
Yeah, the public realized that too. So yeah. All good things have to come to an end somehow. What happened?
It's a hard story. But
the thing is, it's a story, it's already accomplished, and you're doing great things. So we still need to hear the story.
I want to say the story began because young people have to grow, and there has to be growth. And if you stagnate growth, you will never be any better. And because we were all young people, we saw a bigger vision than Earl at the time. And this is not to belittle or to say that he didn't have a vision. He had a vision for the band. Afropan was his band, and it still is his band. Nobody will ever take that away from him. What he has done in Toronto with Pan, we call him we call Afropan the mother of all bands. That's fine, but the mother had to have children, and therefore you have to have growth. So we as young people, there were several of us, and it was, I'm gonna name those names and I hope I don't forget. We did approach Earl, and Earl was inspired through the music programs in the school system, and they liked him. What happened is that they also wanted him to grow, but we wanted the program to run in the winter, not just the summer. And there was a little rift there where we went back and forth with him, and we said, Earl, let's do this in the winter also. But because we were at 44 St. George, it was the home of Afropan. So we would have to practice there. We didn't have pans. We have to get his permission and things like that. So we needed his blessing, and we didn't get the blessing that we wanted. You have to bless your children, right?
Yeah.
And that's how I see it. And if you can't bless us, then we got to do something else, right? So
it's gonna go anyways.
Yeah, the decision was made that several of us came together and we said, no, it's time to go. And about, I would say at least 15 of us left. And that was like Edwin, John, Spy, myself, Saintel, Greg, Delia, Andrew was there with us. There's quite a few players that left with us at the time. And because of that, we were from Jane and Finch.
Yeah.
The core of the band at that time was from Jane and Finch, because he brought us from the school. So he had cultivated an army of players that were good. We were good players. So we carried the band during that time frame. And then, you know, the odd ones from Afropan that left with us was Edwin and Spy. Lane Clark became our arranger at the time because he came over with us. But we left with good intentions to do something good in the community. At the time, Jane and Finch was experiencing a lot of kids on the street, and we found a way to keep them off the street and bring them into the band, and to cultivate a program where we thought that, you know, let us bring the community together. And we were able, God willing, God blessed us, that we were able to surround ourselves with people who would uplift us back then. Rick Gosling, Gene Augustine, Zadina Conde was even a part of that. And the city of Toronto, in terms of Mel, I want to say Peter Lapretti, all of those MPPs up in Jane and Finch, we went to them and they helped us. Quite a few of us had the opportunity to work with them. We got space, And then we got monies through Elton Jones. I say Elton Jones because you know who that is.
Yeah.
All the Joneses, oh, we're not related, but Jones, Elton Jones. Elton had a program in Vanier, and his
people don't want to do like the Joneses, they want to follow the Joneses, you know.
I know. And then we were able to secure some funds, and we bought our first sets of pans. And Ed Peters made some of those pans. And that is how we came on the road the first year. And by coming on the road, we came down from Jane and Finch with at least 100 players.
Wow. Okay, so so, and you never look back in terms of course, like everything else, they have the little rough times, maybe you didn't anticipate or whatever, because I know when there's spin-off, because of the anticipation and making sure you make it, all the effort and 110% goes into it, but as the existence maintain, then the things creep in. So did you have any, you know, before, because you were on a streak when I covered the band in 2017 on the 50th anniversary, you were already on a seven streak as defending champions. What happened prior to that, those streaks, and how you managed to come into those streaks and maintain that consistency, that performance year after year? So prior to that, you weren't that much of an impact in terms of consistency. What happened and what you guys put together to reach that stage?
So prior to that, the band was winning. You have to look at the makeup of bands in Toronto at the time, right? When we say a winning, there was already a panorama. When we say panorama, because Muggs Cecil Clark was doing his own Pantry Bagel panorama. We never competed. We competed as when Afropan was competing on the road, right?
Yeah.
And we always have to correct the history of that. And I tell people, and so Earl June and I always talk about that too. When there was a competition, it was just a judging on the road. It was not a competition where we did the music, but they judged 5 minutes of music. That I still don't call that a competition.
Okay.
And you have to record that properly. And I think that is where some people will say, no, we won for 40 years straight. Well, okay, well, you won for 40 years straight, but it was a 5-minute piece of music that they judged, or they judged just for 7 minutes. They were judging us on the road. Afropan, Fantasy, Metro Toads, what was the other band?
Yeah, but on the road is different, that's a different category.
Yes, exactly.
The existence of Pan is always 2 different categories. Band on the road is different to a band on Panorama.
Exactly. So we didn't have that until later on when Pan Alive came up. So when Pan Alive came now, and you're looking at judging a band, everybody, it's just like Trinidad. A band will win 1 year, a band another year. So that started to happen. We were pretty well in the 1, 2, 3s. And I remember the first year we didn't compete here. We competed in New York, Pan Fantasy, and came second.
So right? why was that? Why you didn't compete here and compete in New York?
A lot of the competition here, we did not compete in Muggs Panorama. We then finally, it was only when Pan Alive started, all the bands came together under OSA to compete in the Pan Alive, if you follow me now.
Yeah, well, the little I'm following from that, unless it's structured, it doesn't look like Wendy is involved.
No.
That's the little I'm picking up on.
We did not compete for quite a long time. It was Afropan and ourselves, and I think Pen Addicts was the other band. We did not compete, several of us. And eventually we did when we all came together as one. And that is no pun intended to anyone. Everybody has their own preference as to what they want to do. And our band was growing at the time. We were still growing musically, growing with arrangers. Lane Clark had left. Then we had Xander arranging for us, Carlton Alexander, excellent musician, did some beautiful work. Took us to New York with that. We were second in New York and competing outside of Toronto, and had that opportunity to take the band to see how different bands were, you know, operating, and came back to Toronto. Finally, we were in Pan Alive. After Xander, there was Lincoln Waldron.
You remember the first year? You remember what year was that first year being in Pan Alive?
Pan Alive, when did Pan Alive start? 10 years?
Fantasy joined Pan Alive.
10 years ago, from the day it started, we were all part of it.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's about 10.
So I didn't realize that your first competition was in New York, because I know some people who are very supportive of the band. As a matter of fact, their son on beat with the band. And I'll get to that when that time comes, because it shows how organized, you know, your band is supposed to be. So going into now that you're starting the Pan Alive, you know, when we turn on the TV, whether it be basketball or whatever, and we don't have a team and the score is being blown out, we tend to support the underdog. So I think sometimes now with you dominating, you know, it's just people it's not feeling sorry. It's just the sportsman-like type of thing. People might just want to see somebody else win. Obviously, I don't know what's motivating you to maintain this winning streak. Now, I don't know what happened after 2017, so maybe you can clue me into what happened after your streak. Is your streak still alive?
Well, the streak is still alive because nobody didn't take it for the last two. So we are still the reigning champion band.
What happened after 2017 though?
Well, 18 we won, and 19, 20, well, up until 2019, 2020, 21 is COVID, so.
Yes, well, I want to know what happened 2018 and 2019 when I didn't cover it.
Yeah, we still won.
Oh my God.
We're eight straight.
So we might have to do like a Marshall. We just might have to make Pan Fantasy a featuring band and tell you just hold off a little bit so that others could get their act together. I don't know.
I don't know.
But you actually, for what I saw, following the Panorama home and getting a little disenchanted with the judging, when I saw it, the one in Toronto, you won it. Now, granted, you came down last, you know, as the last band beaten at that time, which is an impact in itself. But if when you listen to the arrangement, the timing, and everything else, yeah, you won it. There's no two ways about it. If you know any kind of music and the impact and the phrasing and the performance and stuff. So you seem to be a community type of organizing person, right? So is that based on your dominance of the Pan Alive or Panorama, or how you want to call it here, that you start going to the New York? I mean, and how many times did you do that? Because that's showing how organized you are and where you're getting that type of support from. If you listen to Earl in his interview, he big you up big time in terms of how hard you work, and you know, you have it down pat like that.
I think you call me a politician.
yes. So what's your vision? How you get this thing done?
Well, I think we've had the opportunity to be like the geese in this band called Pan Fantasy. North York Intercommunity Youth Group is the name of the organization that we belong to. That's what we started. And Pan Fantasy Steel Band is under the umbrella of North York Intercommunity Youth Group. And it is here to foster youth leadership skills through the performing arts. Also to mentor and also to do community outreach. So with those things in place, one of the things I could say is that Greg Bob, who was instrumental in seeing a vision in terms of us leaving Toronto and going to New York to compete. He was adamant. He was like, guys, we gotta go to New York, because we would go to New York every year for Labor Day weekend, and they had a steel pan competition. And Greg came back one year and he said, we can do this. And that was the Bugsy and all of them were over there, Moods. So he had aligned himself with the Pan players in New York because they had a Juve and they had Pan and they had all those wonderful things. We didn't have that here. So he said, we can do this, guys. We can pack up the band and let's go. And we were like, no, we can't do that yet. We have to raise money. And he said, listen, this is what we got to do. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. We went down to New York, and the year we went, the first song we played was Woman is Boss.
Okay. All right. A choice made by Wendy Jones.
That was a song of the time. And because that was the inspiration, Woman is Boss. And we went down there, put on a performance. We went back down the following year. They were like, what, Toronto, the house? Only bring our band from Toronto to beat New York bands? Oh, you guys are something. We went back again, Fire Down Below, Musical Volcano. So we were going,
yeah,
back then. And we actually placed second and third, and we were right there with the
I think the second or third, I mean, I get it from your fans, so I don't know how, but I understand people in New York felt you guys were a little robbed a little bit.
Yes. They when they listened to the music, they were shocked. They were like more like, take the band back to Toronto, they go back to Canada. You know, you're hearing it in the
Yeah.
Tuned that out, and we just got on the stage. And when we loaded up on the stage, everybody was shocked because the following years to come now, they expected us to show up, which is the same thing we experienced in the last couple of years going to New York, you know, and that was amazing. But back then, I think when we started to go down to New York, it left an impression because it gave us something to work towards. And then we started to listen to the instruments. And that was another thing. Listening to our instruments, the sound of our instruments, it didn't sound the way we wanted it to sound. We wanted it to sound like Trinidad. We want to sound like the Pans coming out of Trinidad.
Yeah.
And most people know Roland Harrigan. Roland is a Toronto man, left Toronto, went back to Trinidad and started tuning. So we did hook up with him, and we've had a relationship with him over the years. He is our community person to go to, and he has made all our pans. And when the band starts to play, you can hear the difference.
Yeah, that's a big difference. Yeah. Now that you say that, as I said, I'm on the outskirts, you know, and yeah, tuners, you know, that's distinguished a lot of the bands in the early years in Trinidad, whether it be Despers and whoever, you know, who tune in the pans. So besides so in other words, you said so now you're about 9th Street.
Yeah.
Okay, and you're doing your community event and stuff. What else in the community? Do you do anything other than what you do professionally?
Yes. One of the things we started was, and when we look back 23 years ago, the Pan Arts Network. The Pan Arts Network was a group of us that steel pan players came together and thought, oh, here we go again. We don't want to just be playing in the summer. We need the bands to come together and do something maybe in the winter time, which would give the players something to work towards. You have to inspire people, not just to compete, but inspire them with a goal in front of them. So as a pan player, I may not want to play for Pan Alive, but I want to play music with the band, right? And we have players like that. So we started several years ago. We brought all the bands together, Earl, myself, and a few of us as the leaders of the band at the time. We all came together and said, hey, let's do a Christmas show. The Christmas show lasted 2 years, and then we figured out that we were competing with Paran.
Yeah.
we just moved away from that and said, let's do it before Carnival, which would be around January. So we have to do a show in January, and we called it Snowflakes on Steel. And then right after that, people would leave and go to Trinidad. So you get to the taste of Toronto Pan, and then you go to Trinidad for Pan again, you know?
Yeah. Okay. So that's how that come about. Okay. Yeah. All right. So there's a lot of shows like that and stuff. But within the community, this Toronto now, are you a sporting person?
Sports?
Yeah.
I used to, yes.
So if you're on Afropan, are you aware of the Flemington situation?
Yes.
Did you live it?
Yes.
You lived it. Let's hear what you lived at Flemington.
I used to go, well, I can't say I was a regular, but I used to go. We would go down on the days of the tournaments. I like the tournaments. So one of the football teams I liked was Irie. So I would go and we would spend the day down there watching the soccer games. And what we took from that was a community coming together. And this is to inspire one another, but you found that you would meet all the Trinidadians, all the different nationalities of West Indians. Everybody came together, and you'd see old friends, people you haven't met for a while or seen for a while all summer, and they would be down there. I met a lot of young people that I grew up knowing in Jaden Finch that played on teams.
Yeah.
Down there. Then we started to play at the Blockos, of course. We would play Pan. When Afropan used to play, we would be there too. And I think for me, Flemington stayed as Flemington because my brother Keith lived in Flemington Park at the time. And so Keith used to hang out down there, and he was in Regent Park. So when Regent Park people came up to Flemo, it was like, you belong to Flemo? No, we from Jaden Finch. Well, we from Bathurst Heights. No, we from downtown Regent Park. So it was a community thing of people in, boom, 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 all over the place, you know? And then that was good because it brought us all together.
Were you beating with Afropan when what year you started beating actually with Afropan?
Oh, my first year with Afropan was 1979.
Yeah, so you would have been around Flemo. Yes.
I remember because that was the year Earl did 79 is Mine and Taxi. Driver, go take it here.
Okay. So seeing that you know what he did and what year and stuff, and you have your ship to manage, is there any little competitive edge?
You know what? We have a good rivalry. And I think when we used to come on the road, the first couple of years, it wasn't kosher, because all of a sudden, you know, you see, these are my kids. They come down the road to beat me. Oh gosh, you know, you got that feeling. And that took a little while before it meshed, before people were comfortable with fantasy. We stood on our own. We stood on our own because we were up in Jaden Finch. We stood on our own. We did what we were supposed to do. But eventually, like you said now, Earl Jr. and I, you know, we do a lot of events together, and most of the stuff that we do together, it's community building.
Yeah. And
so there's no animosity there. Like, hey, we need to do this. Let's go. Boom. You know, or he called, let's go. And we're going.
That's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And you find it's the generational thing that make that mesh, you know, and that's what I wanted to hear, you know, because that generational thing is all that's happening now. We hope that the generations could just make it go away, you know, because that's the only thing to save us is the young ones coming up.
Yeah.
You know, so what else is on the plate for you ever went in Trinidad?
Yes.
As a band or okay, let me hear to compete or just to showcase?
I want to say, when somebody asked me the other day, what is one of my biggest accomplishments? One of the biggest accomplishments for Pan Fantasy Steel Band is taking our band to Trinidad to play in the ISP, and that was done in 2015. And that was the international panorama they had. See, I'm getting choked up about it now. The thing is that, you know, people leave other countries to go to Trinidad to play in bands.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't do that. We took our own band and we played in our own band. So we represented Toronto, Canada.
That's a big accomplishment.
And I think that was amazing. Like when I got on that stage, I thought to myself, thank you, Lord. I didn't learn to play pan in Trinidad. I never played with a band in Trinidad. And here I am playing with my band in Trinidad on the big stage.
and you give mommy the video.
I wish I could.
So what stage was that? Let's say, which was the big stage? Where?
In Savannah?
Yeah. Well, I don't want to do the fill things for you. I need people to hear you say that.
Yeah, in Savannah?
Because, you know, some people would be just contented to know you're playing Trinidad and Skinner Park or some Napa or somewhere, you know what I mean? So isn't it, it's really, so you came up the greens at all? Or, okay. So you heard about that. You wouldn't know about that from home, but probably used to go back home all the time and you know about the Baba Green and all these things, right?
I
So
did
you experienced that?
Yes, I experienced it years prior. So to experience it with your own band is amazing. And I can tell you, when we all got on that stage, I just saw some of the young people that were with us that day. Tears were in their eyes. They were crying when we came off the stage. We mashed up the stage, as Ben Jackson would say. There was a point where the wheels of one of the racks went right through the stage. So after we finished playing, we couldn't move.
You sound like you're not forgetting that at all. Like,
no, it was an experience. Let me tell you.
what tune you played?
Lucy.
Okay.
I said and Lucy. And it was 50 players from Toronto, Pan Fantasy. And I could tell you we had support from the bands in Trinidad, Joylanders. That's where we stayed with them. And we had that opportunity to be with them. And the funny thing was, you had to see the excitement on Pan Fantasy players when we got into the savannah. It was the hottest day ever in Trinidad. It went from like thinking about Toronto summer was 10 times what we experienced in Trinidad. And that was something else. So they had to deal with the heat and come with it with the level of energy that we play at here. I'm telling you, we all lost about 50 pounds that day, just playing. One thing I took away from that day, and I admire him for, was Dr. Ray Holman came up to us. And he stood up in front of the band and he listened. And he said, "This band sounds amazing." He said, "Where is the arranger?" And when when Al Foster, who is the arranger of our band, and Al grew up with us, he came into the band at 16. He then became the arranger of the band, and he is still the arranger of the band today. He did amazing. He has done amazing work with Pan Fantasy for us to win those songs that we've used. His arrangements, then the driller would come, which is Ben Jackson, came in from Trinidad. But when Ray listened to the music, he said to us, "Yes, excellent." He said, "Don't worry about what happens here. Just keep doing what you guys are doing. Your music is on point. The arrangement is on point. The sound of the band is on point. The tuning of your pans is on point. And you got good players." When he told us that, I was like, ah!
I just know the little extra you had too. I didn't realize that this guy was with the band from 16, because to me, the band is all made up of everything, all the pieces together. It's like he knows the songs, he knows. So now, knowing that you just revealed a big part of this puzzle, that he was the band that long from that young. You know, so he's like a heartbeat.
He is a heartbeat. Al Foster is he is Jamaican, first of all, let me say. He likes to say that. He's not Trinidadian. And when people ask him, "So wait, you're a Jamaican arranging music for Trini culture thing?" And he's be like, "Well, yeah." He's got it. He is, we call him perfect pitch. The child just, there's no words for him. It's like God just planted a seed within him and it just kept on growing and growing. He does teach with the Toronto board right now, but his inspiration in terms of his musical talent, it exceeds what I even thought it could be. And this young man, I always say to him, you know, God knew what he was doing to him when he born him. I say born him, you know.
So this school board is music he's doing?
Yes.
That's his thing.
Yes.
Yeah. He's, you know, and it's refreshing to see a young person, because the industry looks like it can go some distance.
Yeah.
You know, it's nice, you respect the experience and everything else with the talent, but when you have talent and it's almost like the experience is built in now, because he can go a long ways.
Yeah.
A long way. So Pan Fantasy have a bright future. So we are aware of the history, what this is about and stuff. I mean, you're not into the soccer aspect, but I felt that one, seeing that you were in Winner's Circle, I think is something to showcase, because there's a certain amount of excellence, and I know it's a certain amount of commitment dedication and stuff that is bring this up. Secondly, it's a culture that I can relate to and the Caribbean people could relate to. So it's, although it's not sport, I think we can work with it. And the main idea, we brought in the entertainment as part of it. And the main idea that Earl La Pierre is one of the founders of the whole thing here. And you, the winning one, taking the mantle right now. I think it was like a no-brainer. And that's why I keep, but you can, this take a while, I don't know. Maybe, yes, ladies and gentlemen, she had me on the run for like a month and a half. I'm getting all these nice comments to the other interviews. She's following the program, all these comments, and she's there, and we're not sure if we could get her. So what was up with that? You know your time was coming, or what was it?
You know what? I like to see people highlighted. It doesn't have to be me. You know what I mean? And I think you're doing a great job at what, you know, just highlighting the people. And when I started to look at the interviews, and I kept on saying, yeah, I remember this. Yes, I remember that. You know, when Ian Jones was on, when Earl was on, and even Earl Jr., and you've had other people like Ricky and all those boys, you know, like I know them all. It's just like, I'm sitting there listening because I'm happy to hear them. This is people that, you know, on the regular, you wouldn't see on an interview.
Exactly.
That's the amazing thing about it.
I like the regular people because, you know, programs like this, you have podcasts and stuff, but you know what? You don't have to be a star or anything. If you know, once you can fit, sometimes the puzzle needs small pieces too. You don't always have to be the big pieces. You know, and as I was saying, although you're not in the soccer/football, that piece that you bring to the puzzle, I mean, we don't want a piece missing. So you bring a valuable piece to it. I hope people understand, and whether they do or not, when they see the end product, they'll understand anyways.
What I want to say too is that even with our group, Pan Fantasy North York Intercommunity Youth Group, we used to run the biggest basketball tournament up in Jane and Finch before Labor Day weekend. We had 50 teams. So I know what you guys were doing. So we used to bring our flyers down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, as you mentioned Jane and Finch too, I don't know if you were there when Driftwood United was in Flemington. That was that team. And it's funny, I was thinking of that before you came on. You know, Driftwood United, when we decided to form under 23 at Flemington Park, their team was practically, I mean, obviously they'll dominate the under 23, but it just shows you that Driftwood, this stigma, and that's why I committed to doing this, because this stigma thing is not working. It's not working, it can't work anymore. Because once we tell our story, it can't work anymore. Because, you know, look what you're doing in Jane and Finch. And that's why even with Ballard, you know, they're from Jane and Finch. I remember Weasel and the Habibs and these guys and them, they brought something to Flemington Park, you know.
And Ricky and them, I mean, when you look back, Ricky and even Brewster, there was another group of Nova Scotians that we had that used to play ball. You know, Stuckey and all of them from that side. The thing is that community building happened then, and people didn't know what that was about. We were doing community building back then, doing that because we also saw a way to bring the community together. We had teams from Montreal all over the place, just like with the soccer. So we used to bring our flyers to advertise that we were going to be having the tournaments up at Jane and Finch. The blockos that we used to have outside of Afropan blockos were happening on a Sunday up in Jane and Finch at all the community centers. And we used to use all the community arenas. Same thing, community building, bringing families together, making sure that we inspire young people to come out and be a part of the community. Everything that we did was community, and we're still doing community. The amazing thing I want to say is that when we left, when young people grew up and they had their kids, now we're trying to integrate these children to see what we did. We're not just hanging out on the street. We're telling them, you don't need to be shooting up the place and being a gangster when you want to be. No, come and learn to play pan. Come and play soccer. Come and play ball. or that's the stuff that we used to do.
Yeah.
And I don't think the young people now understand that, some of them. They rather just hang out. No, don't hang out and be idle. My mother used to say, idle hands have...
That's not a saying, you know. I live that. That's true.
It's true.
You know, no matter how good your kids are, if they don't have things to do, you know, that's the idle hands thing. So I want to thank you for doing all this community work. I think you not just Pan, you know, I think you spreading wide in terms of the things that you could bring together and stuff. So maybe you're not a politician, according to her. Maybe you find that you're getting by with your planning, you know, and maybe you know what doors to knock on.
Yes, I do. And the fun part about that is that I try to take others along with me. You know, it's not just about me or the band only. As I said, we have Pan Arts Network, and we try to, by having Pan Arts Network, we can have shows and have everyone participate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Bring them up to the standard. And I think that's what we strive to do in Toronto. And one of the things, hopefully we can get back to, we were planning it for end of 2019 to 2020, was to have workshops for the Pan community, to get everybody up to the level of competing properly. Those workshops are so needed here. And we integrated ourselves when we saw what can be done and who can do it. You have to strive to inspire others, not to compete with them. And, you know, I am not competing with anybody. I compete with myself. That's who I compete with.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, you just made a statement there, and that's a cue, and that hopefully we can get back to. And that's a serious cue for this day and the days to come, is that hopefully we can get back to it's, I don't want to use the word stressful, but the not knowing, you know, it's a time we have to rely on each other, and it doesn't seem like we're doing the best of job right now. That's in terms of this COVID business, you know. Really and truly, it's just for everybody. It's, you know, we watch sport and stuff. This is really a team effort, you know.
It is a team effort. And if you look at all the players on the team, they have a role to play. Every team has a role to play. And in any band, everybody has a role. Even if they're just thinking that they're just coming to practice to sit down, they have a role. And even when we go to Pan Alive, for instance, or we go to compete somewhere, I say to them, it's not about winning. You are always number one in your heart, because you know why? You did your best. And when you do your best, you are number one. And that is what you have to strive to inspire young people. You tell them they are doing their best. Excellence, excellence, excellence. So I have to give you a joke. I met a lady once, and she said to me, are you competing in Pan Alive this year? And I said, yes. She says, I don't think you should. And I said, no. She said, who won last year? I said, we did. And she said to me, I don't think you should win this year. So I was like, okay, why did you say that? And she said to me, well, there's other bands that should win. And I said, well, that's fine. Other bands are competing to win. But I said, I just want to ask you one question. If you're on a team and you go into a tournament, I remember saying this to her, I met her in the mall, and I said, you go into a tournament, and let's say you have kids, and you take these kids to play with a team, and they practice every week, and they practice hard, and they practice in 4 or 5 hours. And at the end of the practice, you said, well, I hope when you go to the tournament, you don't win. And when I said that, she did this to me. And I said, okay. I said, and I want you to listen to the perspective. You've taken a child and you've said to the child, I want you to practice, but I want you to do very well. I want you to do well. And then the child gets to find out there's a goal. The goal is to compete in a tournament. And when you compete in this tournament, you're competing against all these other teams. Who could win? And you could win also. There's a chance for you to win. So when you go to practice, I'd like you to sit on the bench. I said, that's what you're telling me right now. So I'm going to say to you, I don't know you very well, but I'm going to say to you, for everyone that is going into a competition, you have to practice as a winner. because you're going with the intent to win. You're not going with the intent to lose. If you're going with the intent to lose, then you have the wrong mindset. So change the mindset. The goal is this. This is the goal. I have a plaque in the panyard that says, the plan can change, but the goal will never change.
Yeah, well, you really need somebody to be the winner so that people could, that's why competition is there. Mm-hmm. When you have a winner, you come to beat that person after. That's how you elevate your game and no matter what. So even if it's for the other arrangers now to do something different.
That's a great way of inspiring people. And I think our wisdom has taught us that over the years. Now, when you look back, you would have wanted to do things differently back then. And had you known that in 10 years, you could have created this beautiful group of people and cultivated and lift them up to be their best. That is amazing. Because when you look back, it's the kids now, right? And you've got to change their mindset. And when we train them, you're training them so that they can be their best, not the worst. You want them to be their best. I love when I see the young people now going and soloing on their own, playing pan on their own outside of the band. You know, I love it.
Exactly.
I'm happy. I'm beaming. I'm like, great stuff. This is amazing. This is what I want to see. And in Toronto, we have to lift the standard. We don't need to compete with anybody else. We just have to do our own thing. You know, COVID has shown a lot of young people that they have a talent and they have a gift. We all have talents. I have found many talents that God gave me I didn't know was there, and I keep using them, and they just keep coming. Because when God pours something into you, you've got to pour it back into the community. You can't hold on to the talent.
That's what I say yes 1,000 times to that one. That's why I asked you about the New York and the Trinidad, because even if you're dominating here, maybe you can make other goals to elevate your group. Don't study you know what I mean? You can go your way. Eventually, because if you listen to it, it's not going to be good. You know, you're going to be holding yourself back. So Wendy, I want to thank you for giving me the time, the history that a lot of people know, but they're seeing you and they're hearing you. Say hi to moms.
My mom, sorry, I meant to correct you prior. At the age of 26, I lost my mom. Mom passed away. Yeah, my mom passed away. And it was a hard time for us, but through the grace of God, everything that she has taught us has kept us. And when having a single mom raise you, it is hard. And mom is gone on and she's looking down on us. She is here with me all the time.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I'm sitting here and this picture is here. And this is an old picture of us up in Jane and Finch. And that's when I'm there. And my nieces. These are all my nieces down there.
She'll be proud of you.
Oh, she is. And I know everybody tells me that.
Because she got a little taste too, eh? She got a taste before she went on her journey.
The only time she saw, I'm going to say this. I was proud because we came out of the tunnel down at Union, you know, where I was telling you there. And that year, as I came out, my sister-in-law went to the store and she brought my mom. And as I came out of the tunnel, I looked across and there she was standing. And I'm telling you, that moment forever stays in my mind because it was like, she finally got to see me too.
Joy, shock.
Yeah, it was a shocking moment. And just that moment, you come out and you didn't expect her there.
Yeah.
And she just smiled. That's all she did. She didn't say a word.
That's what I want to hear. Yeah, that's what I want to hear. Yeah.
I know she's always been looking down and saying,
that smile. Yeah. You have to remember that smile. The acceptance that she realized, go girl.
Yes.
You wanted to do that. So, you know.
She stays with me. I thank God for that. So with all things that you're doing, continue to inspire other people by bringing them on, but telling their story. Their stories are important. And we tell the stories.
I'm so glad you fit in moms because you hear me mention it because that part of the upbringing and stuff is important. So how you motivated, it must be something behind you to give you that. You know, and that's why I keep coming back to it. So you really have to correct me because that's how I know it, you know. And if it was an error I was making in the thing, I would have make it all the time because I like the grounded thing.
I think you did well. And we were talking, and just based on talking, you know, I always say my mother's inspiration stayed with me because I kept on saying to myself all these years, and I continue to say, Mom, thank you. Thank you for what you instilled in us. For some of us that got it and some that didn't, the one thing my mother did say to my aunt before she passed away, she says, I worry about my other children, but there's one child I don't worry about, and that's Wendy.
Smart lady, very smart lady. So, all right. So thanks again, and you stay safe. All right.
Thank you. Blessings to you, and keep doing what you're doing, and may God continue to guide you.
Thanks. All right.